สวัสดีค่ะขอเชิญแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะที่มาฟังบรรยายในหัวข้อ Nature Based Solution for Resilient City จาก Professor กงเจี้ยนหยูได้ที่ห้องออดิทอเรียมชั้น 5 และห้องถ่ายทอดสด Friend of BAC ที่ชั้น 6 ได้แล้วค่ะการบรรยายของเราจะเริ่มประมาณ 6 โมงตรงจนถึง 1:45 หลังจากนั้นเราจะมีเวลา 15 นาทีในการถามคำถามนะคะถ้าใครมีข้อสงสัยให้เตรียมไว้ช่วงสุดท้ายได้เลยค่ะและการบรรยายจะเสร็จสิ้นประมาณทั้งหมด 2 ทุ่มนะคะแต่ว่าเรายังมี exhibition ที่แสดงผลงานของ Professor กงเจี้ยนอยู่ที่หน้าห้อง Auditorium ชั้น 5 และผลงานที่ได้รับรางวัล International Award Winning Thai Landscape Architecture ที่ชั้น 1 ค่ะขอเชิญนะคะก่อนการบรรยายจะเริ่มรบกวนช่วยปิดมือถือด้วยนะคะขอบคุณมากค่ะเดี๋ยวรอสักครู่นะคะ Professor อยู่กับเราแล้วค่ะ Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Kongjian Yu from TURENSCAPE to the stage. On behalf of Asomsin Institute of the Art, in partnership with Thai Association of Landscape Architects, I would like to extend a warmest welcome to all of you to the second Asomsin annual lecture, Nature-Based Solution for Resilient Cities. And now, may I invite Ms. Chachanin Sang, Landscape Studio Design Director of Asomsin Institute of the Arts, to make a welcome statement.
ก่อนอื่นต้องสวัสดีอาจารย์ที่เคารพทุกท่านนะคะแล้วก็แขกท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกคนแล้วก็พี่ๆน้องๆที่มาร่วมงานในวันนี้นะคะ Professor Kongjian Yu, Mr. Namchai Saisupa, President of Thai Association of Landscape Architects, friends and participants, on behalf of Asomsin Institute of the Arts, I would like to warmly welcome everyone to the second Asomsin annual lecture.Thank you very much for attending today's forum organized by Asomsin in cooperation with Thai Association of Landscape Architects. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Thai Association of Landscape Architects for its strong support. Initiated by Asomsin, the purpose of the annual lecture is to be a forum to connect people across cultures by exchanging knowledge.Best practice and experience in field of architecture, education and social entrepreneurship. We do hope that you will find the lecture to be relevant and informative, and hopefully it will continue to receive support from our professional colleagues and friends. Today, we are very privileged to welcome and get insight from our keynote speaker, Professor Kongjian Yu, a native of Zhejiang Province. Professor Yu received his Doctorate of Design degree from the Harvard Graduate School of Design and is the founder of the College of Architecture and Landscape Architects and the Chiang-Kung Scholar Chair Professor of Design at Peking University. He is also the founder and president of TURENSCAPE, one of the first and largest private architecture, landscape architects and urbanism practice in China. Named China National Thousand Talented, His pioneering research on the ecological security patterns and spawned cities was adopted by the Chinese government as the guiding theory of national land use planning, eco-city campaign, and urban ecological restorations. His guiding design principles are the appropriation of the ordinaries, such as rural agricultural landscapes, and a deep embracing of nature, even in the potentially destructive aspects such as urban flooding. Professor Yu has published 25 books and over 300 academic papers and had won numerous international awards for his ecologically and culturally sensitive projects. Examples include the design of Shanghai Houghton Parks, Harbin Quarry Stormwater Parks, the Queen Hongda Residence Park, and Changshan Shipyard Park. Moreover, his work has been featured in many publications. Professor Yu is in this sum one of the most accomplished persons in his respective fields. So, on behalf of all participants here, I would like to express our deep gratitude to Professor Yu for being here to share his experience and thoughts with us. Given his wide experience and knowledge, professionalism and wisdom, I am confident that all of us will get invaluable insight from Professor Yu's lectures. The topic of his presentation is nature-based solution for resilient cities, which is very important to all of us since landscape, and its feature contribute significantly to our well-being and quality of life. Living in aesthetically pleasing and culturally meaningful landscape enhance our sense of well-being. I think all of us can agree that the problem faced by big cities can be significantly lessened, and moreover, the quality of life of urbanites can be radically improved if we can develop better city landscape. Now, it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Namchai Sansupha, President of Thai Association of Landscape Architects, to deliver his opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Tip, and thank you, Somsin, for letting Thai Association of Landscape Architects. It's an honor for us to co-host this today's talk by Professor Yu Kongjian of TURENSCAPE, the company that is embarking on changing the profession, the perception of the professions, hence the city, and ultimately the world for the better. It is showing us, the landscape architects and designers, that our roles and responsibilities are beyond just for human use of landscape. By endlessly, again and again, exhibiting the holistic nature-based solutions for the problems causing by overpopulations as today, causing by urbanizations, especially the problem that is regarding to the water. So today, I think as we are living in Bangkok, the city that is building so much and trying so hard to stay dry, we will learn a great deal from you, Professor Yu. So please take the stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for Asong Xin, for particularly Professor Pit Ban for inviting me here, and also thank Thailand Association of Landscape Architecture that sponsors this wonderful exchange. Now, we share also problem, with same problem today: global climate change, flood, drought, pollution, habitat loss, and many more. Conventionally, we have very strong engineering solutions based on industrial technologies. We'll build the dikes, we'll build the ponds, we'll build the pipes, we'll build a sewage plant, try to solve this problem, right? One by one, single-minded, one shoot, one problem, right? But eventually we find that those solutions didn't work. City get flooded all the time, right? We didn't solve the problem. 85% of the sewage water still running into the rivers, global-wise. In China, 75% of surface water is polluted, and in other countries, maybe more. I mean the developing countries in the south. So I'm talking about the other solution, an alternative solution, which is sustainable, not so expensive, easy working, nature-based, holistically. The ecosystem service-based solutions, the nature-based solutions, right? The green infrastructure we call it. And two strategies that landscape architecture can play a key role, an important role to put forward this idea to create this alternative green infrastructure. I will call the ecological infrastructure. Planning and design, right? For the planning, we can solve the problem global-wise. We think it's a globe as a garden, as a landscape. Yeah? So in the past 20 years, we practice this kind of natural-based solution globally, but particularly in China. We have built over 500 projects so far in over 200 cities in China, the project like those. And also, we have projects in about 10 countries, in Russia, in US, in France, in Paris, Indonesia. And in China, you can see those projects are demonstration that how can we use this landscape as infrastructure to solve those problems holistically and across the scales, at the national scale, at the regional scale, at the city urban scale, and all the way to your backyard and even to your bedroom. So that's the idea, how can we use nature as a solution. For example, in China, engineers usually try to protect the flood from, protect the city from being flooded. But when we look at the rivers, the water only take 1% of a whole national land. But every year we invest billions of dollars try to protect the city from being flooded. Why bother to do that? Huh? The water only need 1% of the land, maximally maybe 6%. That's the case in China. I will say it was quite similar in other parts of the world, right? Because we built the city wrong, in wrong place. 70% of the cities, of the land, in terms of the area of the land, are built in wrong place. For example, in China, 70% of GDP, or 70% of population, actually is distributed in the flood zone, high-risk flood area, which means at the beginning, we built the city wrong. We select the wrong place. So we have to think, how can we select the better site for the city, for the future development? Yeah, because we still need to move a lot of people from rural to the city. So what's the next city should be? Where should we build the city? Like Indonesia, I just a couple of weeks ago, the minister of Indonesia, developer and planning, visited my office, says that they're going to move the capital. So where to build the capital? Without being flooded, avoid being flooded. Now that's the job of landscape architecture, should do it. So we think globally. If we keep the green area protected, we virtually we create a security for the nation ecologically. So, and the city should build like that. Now that's a vision at the national thinking. Regionally, how can we avoid the flood? Keep the water, right? And protect the habitat. And integrate with bicycle lanes, pedestrian network. All together, create a sponge, a green sponge that can hold water. So the monsoon water, the monsoon flood will be kept on the ground and the seep, right? Retain on the ground and go back to the aquifer. Now that's the whole idea about the sponge city, sponge, right? Without diverting, try not to divert water to the ocean, but try to keep them, to retain them. Because the whole world is in shortage of water, right? And we have dry season. During the dry season, you need water. So use landscape as a remediator of water. So the city will build differently. Instead of based on great infrastructure, build pipes, build highways, build this great infrastructure, exploring, the city keeps exploring. We say, why don't we use a natural system that as a infrastructure, right? For example, as a drainage system. So we will have a much sustainable, more resilient city. At a medium scale, a city of 10 square kilometers in size. Look at the site. This is a conventional solution. The engineer come here, the design, the pipelines, the create this a grid, but remove all this water, the pond system, and leveling the ground, But the pond are created by farmers for thousands of years. The farmers know how to regulate water, right? So create a pond to irrigate the field, to remediate the monsoon climate. So during the rainy season, they keep the water. During the dry season, they use the water to irrigate the rice paddy. But that's the whole idea, right? From our tradition, right? But as the Industrial Revolution wiped out all this wisdom based on experience. So, alternatively, we recover this ancient wisdom, turn this pond existing water heritage, it's cultural, it's natural, altogether, integrate them into a green infrastructure before the city even built, and then integrate it with bicycle pedestrian system, and afterwards make the land developed, right? The city built after the landscape is planned, is designed. Now that's the master plan. See, without pipes, the city can be built without a drainage pipe, but they use the landscape as green infrastructure to deal with the flood and drought at the same time. That's the rendering at the beginning. It was designed 10 years ago. 10 years ago, that's the rendering. It was built. Today, you see how we use landscape as green infrastructure. No pipe, no bulldozer. We don't even bulldozer to leveling the ground. Look at the drainage system from the community, from the roof. The water comes from the roof, come to the sponge within the community, within the city. And during the rainy season, you have the creek. But during the dry season, you still have the vegetation. And the wetland system function as a filtrator of the dirty water. Remember, the pipes here on the street always get stuck by the silt, by the dirt. It didn't function. It didn't function very well, right? But here, the landscape healing itself, right? Resilient, cleans the water, and also at the same time stores the water, retains the water, and create a self-irrigate this vegetation and beautiful, right? So it's an ecosystem service oriented. It's not single-minded engineering solution. So that's planning. Think about the national, the global, the regional, the city scale. Landscape leading all the urban development, create infrastructure, as green infrastructure. But what about design? When nature and culture overlap, you cannot develop a line. You cannot draw a line between culture and nature. Well, landscape planning means you draw a line between developed and nature, right? Between culture and nature. That's planning. Where to do what? That's we call planning. But what about here? This building, look at it. It's architecture. I call it deep form, deep architecture. You cannot separate nature from culture. So it's a landscape, right? The terraces in Thailand, you see the rice paddies. It's a cultural landscape, but it's nature at the same time. So underneath is nature, process, patterns. Above it is a culture. Right? It's cultural. So it's a deep form. I call it deep form. Right? It's not shallow form. So in this case, because also inspired by the science, inspired by this tradition, farming. Look at the farming is a cultural process, but the farming process is totally based on nature. The waters, the terraces, the terrain, the vegetation. So we get inspired by this and abstract this, create models, quantify it, and test it. It tested, post-operational test to see how it works and become a modern technology, replicable across the scale. For example, flood. This is a conventional engineering solution, right? This is a culture. But this culture have no relationship to nature, right? So it's a shallow form. It's cosmetic. Right? Nothing to do with nature. So we say we are going to create deep form. The culture will reflect the natural process and nature pattern. So we remove the concrete like that. It's the same. Concrete channel. I saw many here in Thailand. So many. We can remove it, right? Recover the natural pattern, natural process. Right? So when the mayor did this, this is one of my first project back 20 years ago. The local government get $1 billion to channelize the river. So when the project finished halfway there, the farmers protest. The farmers don't like it. You know why? Because the buffalo cannot go into the water to get water, right? And the kids, when flood come, people cannot get up on the line. People get drowned. And the frog disappear. And no frogs in the city, right? Because the frogs, the toad cannot go become frog, climb to the land. So what should we do, right? So the mayor called me to find a solution. So I say, here's a solution. We need to remove those concrete and recover the land. But certainly we have, this is resilient, right? The grass is more powerful than concrete. So concrete will collapse in 20 years. But this native grass, they will be here forever. They regenerate themselves, right? They're living concrete. They're living powerful protector of the soil, right? But certainly we are based on science. And more science, more scientific than this hydrological model, actually. Because we now today understand, we know based on geographical analysis, here's 10-year flood, here's 20-year flood, here's 50-year flood. So flood didn't go anywhere. So flood doesn't go anywhere. Why we use one section to channel the river? Make no sense. So here we say that if it flooded, we make it into a park. If not flooded, we can build over, become a city. So this was before, right? Engineer did 20 years ago. Now this was today. A landscape architect did right? We did. We removed those concrete and turned the river into, we divided into two rivers. It's the same space, by the way. We don't have enough space. It's the same space, but we create a landscape which is resilient. Because we have an inner river, we have the river for flood. During the monsoon season, the flood can go, but during the dry season, we divert water actually can go to the city. So people can use the city, touch the river all the time. The pump, dirty water, we cleanse it, right? Become touchable, swimmable, right? People used to be concrete, now become a landscape. That's the inner river, right? Filtrating process. So vegetation will clean up the river, clean up the water, and people enjoy it. So we demonstrate this kind of project. And now we get so many visitors from mayors. So then we have a bigger project. We have a huge project. This one is also in my hometown. A huge concrete, right, dam like that, dike. So remove it, terracing it, like rice paddies on the mountain, following the nature. Right? This is a bird eye view. You can see that used to be the dike here. So remove it. There's 1 year flood, 10-year flood, 20-year flood, 100-year flood. So share with the flood, share with water. People, most of the times it's become a park, and only occasionally it's flooded like that. Occasionally, maybe once a year, or maybe one day only. That's monsoon climate, right? Flood after flood. All the silt, all the water will irrigate the whole landscape. But even during the flood season, you still have the pedestrians, the bicycle connectivities. Dry season, above is 200-year flood level, 10-year flood level. So it's resilient. The city is resilient. Use the landscape as infrastructure. And let water come into the city. And here is a showcase to show you how we can transform, recover the coastal area, to recover the mangroves. This was before. 2 years later, become like that. Mangrove recovered, makes the city more resilient. Is in Sanya, it's the same kind of climate. It's a monsoon climate, tropical. You can see that's our investigation, our geographical analysis to see where is flooded, where is get coastal high, this sea level rising, monsoon flood. So a whole system. So the whole flood area becomes sponge. We want to create a whole sponge system in the city. Now that's some of major piece. One little piece. This is about 1 square kilometer in size. A test ground. So create a sponge city. So this project at the coastal area. It used to be a mangrove site. Now been destroyed because of construction. We want to recover it. So we analyze this as a site. This is sea level, sea water, this is fresh water. So when they meet here, they create habitat for mangrove. This was the site. As was the process based on nature. The tide, the fresh water, tide. So let nature recover. Let nature do the work. So when they meet, they create habitat habitable for mangrove. It's in process. That was site. This 1 year, 2 year. So this is salt water, fresh water, come from this way. So we create a nature, people, birds coming, bird watching, pavilions. So these are all completely nature. And there's a city built around it, right? It's just in 2 years recovered. In 2 years, you see. And there's a project in the city, in the middle of the city. The whole city is flooded during the monsoon season. In May, I mean, from I would say from March to May is a monsoon season, like that. The whole city is like that, flooded. Yeah, in the middle of the city, you see? Yeah. So the idea is that we'll create a sponge right in the middle of the city and use a very simple technique. Learn from farmers, cut and fill, pond and dike system, right? No import or export of dirt on site. And in 1 year, we finish the project like that in 1 year at the beginning, right? Pond system, dike, and islands, simple. And that's before. 2 years later, it become like that. The island will absorb, retain the water, but also absorb, take off, remove all the nutrient, all the dirt. This was today. This is today. Can see. Yeah. Only 2 years later. Only 2 years later, I would say. Yeah. That's become not only as a solve the problem of water, but also create economic value for the city. You can see tripled. The land value tripled in this area. You can imagine. The fourth strategy is minimize the intervention, maximize the ecosystem services. This was traditional, right? Conventional engineering solutions. Channelize it, concrete, dike, damming. Yeah, the natural river have been totally transformed and lose all resiliency. Minimize it. Keep nature. Let nature, leave nature alone. You don't have to deal with nature. To design whatever important artifacts, the art. So I use very little art, transform the nature system as a bench. This bench is, 500 meters long. Yeah, but only one bench, nothing else, and the boardwalk connected with the bench for people to sit, lighting, for people to enjoy, following the art, to enjoy the nature, the beauty of nature, see? But that's only one bench. The river didn't touch, Not a single tree is cut. Everything is nature. No care. No irrigation, no fertilizer, no sprawling, no maintenance. Only one this piece is man-made. And suddenly become attraction for the people. The people, you see, used to be very wild, very messy, and suddenly attract people. Look at these 3 old ladies in the morning here, in the night still here. Yeah, so that's a little intervention, but maximize people's, the service from the nature. As native shrubs, native trees, a little bench, like a lady, this one. You don't have to go to cosmetic to South Korea. It's very expensive. You spend $2,000, $20,000 maybe to get cosmetic, to get facial change. But use one bench, also transform your face dramatically, but very little touch. Keep your own authenticity. That's the city, it's the same as nature. Messy, not beautiful maybe dangerous, snake, whatever, not feel safe. But the art transform it. A little bench suddenly become very romantic place. Yeah, people enjoy the seedlings, the messy nature. It was before, after. Native grass, before, dirty, messy, transform it. Such a welcome place. 5,000 people at the same time use the same little bench. Right? You see, anytime, before, after, in the night. In the night, people use it. In the winter. and snow coming. So nature has its own beauty, nature has its own process. The artifact is a way to read nature, for people to appreciate nature. A sponge in the middle of the city. How we make nature as infrastructure itself. This is another sponge case in North China. The city keep being flooded for a long time, like that. And we get the project here. Right in the middle of the city, it was a wetland. And now the wetland disappeared because it's built over. This is the city built over this area. Get dry. Now we inspired by this, the Pearl River Delta area, in the river delta, like mango, like here, like Thailand, right? Cut and fill. The marsh, the swamp become inhabitable, become productive, and become dry land. So you raise fish in the pond and grow vegetable and fruit trees on the dry land and build settlement here also. So it's the same idea. This is a whole park, about 33 hectares in size, surrounded by buildings and the city. So we create a necklace, a very simple necklace, cut and fill necklace. So we create a porous landscape, a filtrator, a sponge, a filtrator. So the water from the surrounding landscape will filter through this porous landscape, go to the middle of the park. You even didn't touch the center, right? Let nature evolve. But this part functioning as a retention and purification of storm water. And we tested actually very poor water and cleaner and cleaner. And here will be clean water, recharge the aquifer. This is the rendering at the beginning. That's the rendering. You can see the habitat, people above it. As cut and fill, cut and fill, cut and fill. So use only one machine. One machine will be enough. Simple, right? Minimum cost. As it was before, after. Just 3 years after. Let's see. That's 2 years after build. Cut, fill. Cut, fill. So that's very simple. And just 4 years later, we have a sponge right in the middle of the city, but also at the same time, catalyst the urban development. You see, just compare. No building yet. 3 years later, all built up, because this land becomes so profitable. The apartment building here doubled in just 1 year. The price doubled. So people are always asking, your project is beautiful, but who is going to invest? Where you get money? The money comes from here. You see, because you get profit by creating ecological landscape in the middle of the city. It was process, cut, fill. Just a couple of years later, you see, become self-generation, self-generated. The shrubs come over. So this was just a year after it's been built, filtrating system. 3 years later, so all these shrubs, vegetations cover the whole area. That's our testing ground. You see, filtrating system, water come into the city. 10%, if the city have 10% give to the sponge, you basically solve the problem. I mean, in China, when the rainfall is about 1,000 millimeter. In Thailand, I would say maybe 20 to 25% will be enough to solve the problem of flood. You have maximum like 2,000 millimeter rainfall maybe, maximum 300 millimeter a day storm water. So you will use this system. The pipes will never solve the problem. 300 millimeter precipitation in one day, the pipes cannot work. So only landscape, only the natural system will work because it's resilient. It's resilient. So that's built, you can see. And birds, many new birds come into the city. So we will have bird watching pavilions. So what about the pollution? So water, as I mentioned, 85% of sewage in developing countries didn't get treated and they run into the river. So all the lakes, all the river is polluted. And this is pollution basically nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen. These are difficult to be treated by industrial process, by sewage treatment process, difficult to be treated. But they use natural process. It's easy because they're basically fertilizers. For farmers, they're fertilizers. So use a biological process. We can basically take over, remove 85% or even 90% of the nutrient from this wetland system. And certainly it's a designed wetland. It's not natural wetland. Natural wetland also has the function of removing the nutrient. But those process usually because it's not so efficient. So we strengthen, we empower, we make a designed wetland to make it more powerful, to remove the nutrient. This is in Shanghai, Hotan Park. This was site before. It's a part of Shanghai Expo. So as I said, inspired by the ancient tradition, ancient wisdom of agriculture. Cascade Wall for aeration, create oxygen in the water, fertilize it underneath, so the plant can take all the nutrient. That's Cascade Wall. We built a Cascade Wall 300 meters long, like create oxygen in the water. And the water become fertilizers, like that. That was built in early spring. Just a month later, will come out all the vegetations, remove all the nutrient. The trees also, cypress trees. It was before the process, built terracing, after this process, construction. So it's a farming process, basically. It's a farm, right? It's a farm. It's not a gardening. It's a farm. It's a field making, irrigation, fertilizing, and removing, harvesting, right? So produce biomass. This biomass can be recycled, can be used as a fertilizer, as animal feed, and also as energy, right? So it's a recycling of nutrient and production process. And at the same time, as soon as you have biomass, you will have all these kind of natural vegetation, I mean the native habitat for biodiversities. All kind of species will come back. Birds, 20 new species for the city, 20 species of birds come into the park. And beauty at the same time. Right? People love it. And produce clean water. So we tested, we measured 1 hectare of constructed wetland can produce 800 cubic meter of clean water, swimmable. You can swim. You can use this water. That's a test. For over 10 years, we keep testing, we're observing. So this become replicable across a scale, larger scale. So we applied it just a couple of years ago. Even worst case, whole river in Haikou, in Hainan Island, or neighbor, not far from here. The river like that, like that. It was 3 years ago, like that. You see, engineer did a lot of work for 20 years. Engineer doing it. They graduated, they built dikes, they tried to drain away all the dirty water, but didn't work. Didn't work because that's single mandate. We want holistic solutions. So when solve the problem as ecological infrastructure, you see, stormwater manages the stormwater. We call it no point pollution, right? No point. We don't know where the pollution come from, but create as infrastructure to transform the whole river system, the whole river, catch all the stormwater and separate sewage. We still need a sewage, of course, but we separate sewage from the stormwater. So cities like Bangkok, we mix the sewage with the stormwater. That's the problem. Yeah? Makes the sewage treatment nonsense, useless. Right? So first of all, you have to separate sewage. The sewage go to treatment. The stormwater go to the river, to the lakes, to the landscape. So that's so simple. The solution actually very simple. But we never do it. You know, so we separate the pipe and remove all the concrete. This was concrete. We remove all the concrete, turns into landscape. Separate the sewage from the stormwater. Again, different sections proposed. These are proposed. These are proposed. This existing. As existing. You see, the whole river is channelized like that. Like human body. It's hard for, you know, without resilient. So that's our design. The river landscape. All the river bank, whenever possible, turn into soft, ecologically friendly green space. You see, catch the stormwater. And sewage also at the same time. This is a sewage plant. We even tested, we divert the sewage into the river, but treated by this wetland system. Pre-treated, remove all the odd, the color, the smell, and the heavy metal, and antibiotics, and all these things. Those are easy to remove. But the nutrients keep, right? The nitrogen, potassium. So this create a river, a recovered river, removes concrete. Really, removes concrete, and turns the bank into functional terrace, like rice paddies. A year later, just a year later, I will show you. This become transformed, totally transformed. A year later, like that, the same side. That's the whole system. The river being recovered. Very lush vegetation, because you have so much nutrient. You have so much water. And the vegetation love it. So this is the whole process of cleansing system. And at the end, at the sink of the water, the sewage water, we create a park. So that's a park. Lotus pond, you see? Look at this, how many people use the lotus pond. And we recycle the concrete, turn the concrete into the islands. The islands for vegetation. The concrete river, yeah. That's the end to the ocean. And certainly we tested. That's a measure. 85% of nitrogen can be removed by this process. You can imagine. So the water become clean now. And as a project, even worse, a whole river about 20 kilometers long, like that. It was 5 years ago like that. Now that's today. What do we do? The whole system. We analyze the whole drainage system, the hydrological system, where the water will meet, catch the catchment, integrated with pedestrian bicycle system and activities. People use it, and transform the river before, after. So it's just use landscape as a systematic transformation. It was before, after. So that's the whole river system. Before, rendering. That was before, the quarry. After. Yeah. So reuse the site. Very little change of the landform. Before, after. This is another project, by the way, to show you how we can transform this kind of case. This is another river, whole system, is about 13 kilometers long. Separate drainage from stormwater. like that. This is all stormwater facility. Stormwater facility, create oxygen, aerate the river. A river runs through the city. So when you're doing the landscape, you actually renew the city. So the city will be developed based on landscape, right? The landscape system. So the landscape create value for the city. This was 1970s, 1980s. This our proposal for today. Keep all the trees, recover the river, and also integrate with today's activity. People use it as it was before, after. Yeah, integrate with art. What about soil? Yeah, we have problem. We have huge problem with the soil. All the soil is polluted. That's in another case. That's in Tianjin. Polluted soil and also alkaline, very serious. Yeah, and we developed this idea: use a sponge to collect stormwater, to use water to dissolve the soil, to make the soil habitable, to create a habitat for biodiversity in the middle of the city. So different level, is a test. It's a testing ground. Deep, shallow pond. So we create 21 pond for a park. The park become a sponge, retains water, collects stormwater, and transform the soil and the vegetation get evolved. That's before, after. The pond is a native vegetation evolved based on evolution. It's a natural process. The people just love it. Low maintenance, functional, not only as a park but also as a stormwater management facility, and also clean the soil and create habitat right in the middle of the city. That's a test. Performance test. You can see how the native species increase, the biodiversity increase, a pH decrease. That's a change of soil, create habitat, and create space, public space for people. If we can do for a river, a park, we can certainly do the whole city. Now, this is the whole city in Liupanshui, about less than a million population. A river runs through it. We remove all the concrete. That's a proposal. And all the tributaries, daylighted. So remove all the concrete. Create a network, an infrastructure. That's green infrastructure. And find patches whenever possible to catch the stormwater, to purify it. Not enough. We want all the pond go into individual backyard, right? Individual communities' backyard. Let's create a sponge. The whole idea is a sponge. That was before. This is after. 2 years later. It was before. 2 years later. Yeah, it's a process. Simple. Dirty water become clean water. Create a public space. People just love it. People just love it. And increase value. And now the World Bank got interested. In the last month, I give 2 lectures to World Bank. One in DC, one in Asia, in China. This was sponsored by the World Bank. Before, they invested on green infrastructure. Now they want to invest in green infrastructure. That's a big change. So this was invested by World Bank. That's our rendering. This was before. It's our rendering. This is a rendering. Sections that's built. That's built. You can see right in the middle of the city is become such a beautiful place. And they get excited. And we want the city to be productive again. we call this agricultural urbanism. In the past 30 years, urbanization took over about 10% of fertile land in China and becomes this messy urban sprawling, take over all the productive land. So why don't we turn the city become productive again? Because we cannot afford to lose fertile land. In China, we have 20% of population, and we cannot self-sustainable if we lose agricultural land. So this is a case. 20 years ago, we demonstrate in the campus to turn the campus into a rice paddy and put a study room in the middle of the rice paddy. Let's see, stormwater collected for irrigation. It was before on the site as after. 6 months after, 6 months, built the rice paddy in the middle of the city. Yeah, these are study rooms. These are all rice paddies. Yeah, even farmers who come here for sheep, goat. Here, students, professors. Yeah, students study under the canopy, under the trees. Professor, happy professor, work across this rice paddy, from the office to the library to the classroom. Yeah, he enjoys because he has shoes on, shoes, suit. It's not farmers anymore. We are urban residents. Yeah, we are upgraded, but here still have the productive rural landscape. So it's a new aesthetics. We create aesthetics, post-agricultural aesthetics. And you have activities in the farm, in the campus, right? Rice planting days, rice harvesting days. You get a culture. And here we keep patches of rice at the corner of the field. Because if you harvest it, the rats, the mouse, the rats will come to your house. So we keep patches of rice in the field. So the rats, the mouse, rat will eat the grain. So when they eat the grain, the owl, the bird, the oven, the bird will catch the rat. Right? So remove the rat by ecological process. Produce rice from the campus. Yeah. So we replicate again this practice at an even larger scale. This another city in Zhejiang, Quzhou, about 1 square kilometer in size. It was abandoned farm. Been abandoned because of urban sprawl. Farmers abandoned the farm. It was abandoned farm, right? River floodable, and the city in the middle of the city. So we transform it. We cover the farm, become a productive farm, but at the same time provide the services for people to use it. So it's a rotating farm. You see, that was before we cover the farm, producing. This is sunflowers over boardwalk, skywalk above the field, rotating. 3 crops annually. You rotate it, sunflowers, meadow, and people just love it. 20,000 people come to the park every day during this season, particularly the flower season. Use the social media, you will see one flower open. The whole city knows that. So they all come to this for celebration. Now that's today. It's just 5 years after the project was built. You see, always catalyzing urban development. And the sponge system, productive farm, resilient farm, no concrete dike again here. Services, recreational services is a service for the people. Produce services also at the same time. So another case is recycling, reuse the material also values the ordinary. This is one of the first project in Guangdong, also in tropical, subtropical area. It was a shipyard like that. It was before. It was 1999 at that time. The whole shipyard went bankrupted. So they want to transform it into become a public park. So before they demolished, I started design. So keeps the whatever, they think they should remove it, but we think it's necessary to be part of the memory of the city. So in the middle of the city, there's a river, the lake, there's a dock. These are all kept. It was before, after. You see, right in the middle of the city. It was before. It's dirty, of course. This picture was taken 1999, 22 years ago, 23 years ago. Yeah, we want to keep it. It's today. You can see, all the 5-star hotel built around this park now today. It's a brownfield. See, before, after. Keep all the docks. A sponge system again, resilient to the water. It was before, as after today. 25,000 couples every year take wedding photos here. 25,000, you can see. That's the use of railroad photos, weddings. There's a new aesthetics. You see, messy nature, healthy people, right? It's a different. So this I call it deep form or deep aesthetics, based on nature. Again, wedding, recycled machinery, a new culture, a memory of the past here. Red culture. The gate is designed as a commemoration of red culture in Chinese cultural revolutions. It's all kind of socialist industrial revolution and all things. A new design tells a story of ordinary. When people think about China, we always think about the pagoda, these glazed temples, these ancient dynasties and the temples. But what about everyday culture? What about normal culture 20 years ago, 30 years ago? So this is a celebration of the ordinary, right? The ordinary people. Look at this. Yeah. This picture was taken about 20 years ago, just after the park was finished. You can see at that time, wearing a red scarf is a special, honor. Is an honor. If you not behave good, you don't have red scarf. It's very Chinese, color even, the color. So it's totally a breakthrough from the traditional Chinese image, the traditional Chinese culture, gardens, culture, and we have come to the new landscape, new aesthetics. And this ecological, green, nature-based solution have to come from your home, your backyard, your building. Now I know many architects here. So architects consume 30% of energy, global-wise, particularly in China. So to start with architecture, in my own home, all the buildings in China, all the buildings, maybe only 1% energy efficient, 99% of energy consumptive, too wasteful energy. So we use air conditioning, we use a humidifier, we use too much energy consumed. So I transform my own home, an apartment, a normal apartment, to collect stormwater from the roof, and solar energy from the roof also, and turn the balcony into a vegetable productive garden, and harvest stormwater. You see, and also I let the stormwater go into my own living room. You see, there's a living wall, and recycle the stormwater in the living room, and turn the living wall into an air conditioner, cool off the building. That's the whole idea. Yeah, that's built. The balcony become vegetable garden. I collect every day to become salad from the balcony and store storm water here. Here's a storm water tank and storm water. Here is a gardenia. It's a beautiful garden. This is my bedroom here. So when I open the door, I actually in. By the way, this is on the 5th floor. This is on 5th floor. So in the garden, in the 5th floor. And I also use the recycled storm water in the living room. That's the living room here. Only couple, maybe only 1 hour sunshine in this case. So turns this wall into a large living wall. Low maintenance. It's not an expensive living wall. Low maintenance. It was 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Yeah. 3 years later. And 3 years later. And see today. Yeah. It become large vegetated living wall. So here, building and landscape merge, right? Disappear. No boundary. Deep form. No boundary anymore. Nature and culture disappear. Right? But this function as air conditioner. Cool off the whole building. I didn't turn off air conditioner during the summer. And no humidifier, even if it's very dry, no humidifier during the winter. Because in Beijing it's very dry. In summer it's very hot. So I can save 2,000 kilowatts of electricity. And by the way, this will create a gas, a kind of gas, air against gas, called a geosmell. And this geosmell is a cure for depression. Right? A depression, is a cure, is a medicine. So it's become a clean, a cool, functional as a medicine, as a create a habitat, an ideal habitat for human being. Now become a classroom today. People come here to learn about how to build their own green home at home. Right? I give talk to them, educating everybody so that they can transform their own environment into green environment. So this way, we can save a lot of energy. We will not build this kind of huge hydropower dam. We don't have to do that. Right? We can remove those. So these are ideas, green solutions, the nature-based solutions, from the regional scale, from the national scale, even from global scale, all the way to your backyard. These are my thinking of landscape. So we think like a king, but we act like peasants. So that's why we need a huge team to act like a peasant, right? To transform the whole. We were thinking the whole globe into a green globe. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much for inspirational speech to share before and after image that. Yeah, no, it's okay. Stay here. And to show the city become nature and full of the people, full of activities, and full of habitats and animals. It's very impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so next we are going to the Q&A sessions. If the audience have questions, please feel free to raise your hand. We will bring a microphone to you. Any questions? Don't be shy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have professor here. It's a good chance.
Any questions? No questions? Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. I think you've seen it, and you said that we build a lot in Bangkok, and even though we are staying very low to the water level, very near to the water level, and we have a lot of water, but keep building and building. If you like take a boat along the Chao Phraya River through Bangkok, you see the flood walls 3 meters high on both sides of the river. So where can we start? What is your advice to us Bangkokians?
Well, that's not only Bangkok. I just in a couple of months I visited Dhaka, I visited Mexico, I visited all these places we're suffering the same problem, and also as I mentioned, Indonesia is going to move their capital because they're not going to survive. So they have to fix it. Right? They have to fix it. We have to fix it. The earlier the better. Right? So we know that, as I mentioned, the concrete will not work. We will, because we've been testing this solution for the past 300 years or something, and we turn out to be getting worse. Getting worse, of course. Yeah. The reason for that is because, as I said, the monsoon climate. We are suffering the monsoon climate. When you look at the cities, European are fine. I mean, European cities are fine. Whereas the Industrial Revolution come out, right? They build a pipe systems. They build a very well regular, standardized system of city building, right? The grid, the pipelines, it calculates. They have models how to calculate, the pipes, the size. But the European model is they don't have monsoon climate. Now that's a problem, right? So when we borrow those models to build the Dhaka, to build the city here, build the city in this climate, it will not fit. So we didn't find an adaptive solution yet for urbanization under this kind of climate. And even today, it's climate change. So even France got flooded, London got flooded, right? That's why I told you we need a new solution, right? Certainly it's so obvious. We need a new solution to build a resilient city, nature-based solutions. And the Bangkok, I'm sure, Thailand, we live in the delta area, in the river. We have this solution. We have solution. For thousands of years, farmers know how to do it, right? But we just forget. We just overlay it. We totally forget. That's I just mentioned. So we have to find this solution based on the wisdom of ancient, long solution, nature-based solution, but upgraded for modern urbanization, modern urban, larger scale urbanization. So I think that's what we should do it. But for today's situation, we certainly have to, I would say, change it. No way. You cannot just keep building that higher, right? 3 meters. What about, and as a big flood come out. This become a huge suicide tank. Like New Orleans, right? You're like New Orleans. You enclose yourself, right? When flood pouring into the city, get flooded. Even worse, much worse, right? So that's because we are accumulating the risk higher and higher until one day will destructive. The destroyer will come. The city will be totally destroyed. So that's why I think we have to fix it right now. The earlier, the better. Sponge city is a solution. I will say it's a solution. As I said, we've been tested for a long time, for 20 years at least. And I know Dhaka, my friend Kotek, she did a wonderful little project here already. And today we have a competition. We also try to build a sponge demonstration project. I don't know whether we get this project or not, but certainly it's a demonstration for the future. So it's possible. I would say it's beginning. The earlier is better. Yeah, the earlier is better. For example, Suzhou, in my home, China, Suzhou, for a couple thousand years, without any pipe for drainage system. But very well, survived very well. But now been flooded, right? So I would say go back to nature, based on nature, and certainly upgraded, wisely upgraded for today's problem. Yeah, because Thailand, Bangkok going to expand anyway, going to expand. Our double, maybe triple in the next 20 or 30 years. I can imagine Bangkok will be much bigger than today, right? Will be much bigger than today. So you have to solve the problem right now to think for next 100 years or even 1,000 years, how to make the city more resilient. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
We have. Hi.
Professor.
Yes. Yeah. My old friend. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Professor, just a very simple question. I think I totally agree with you. And then, how can we transfer your message to our government or Lord Mayor of Bangkok? Something like this. I think you have this expertise.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's the key. That's the important. We have to let the decision maker understand that, know that. So that's why one of my first book, which I will give to a Society of Landscape Architecture Thailand. One of my first book is Talk to Mayors. I have a book, 2003. It's the first book, Talk to Mayors. And I sent it, every mayor have one copy of my book. And now the book has been published in English just last year by New York Terraform, by Michael Sorkin in New York. Now it's available. He make it even more powerful, called Letter to Leaders. Letter to the Leaders of China and the Future City. Right? You can find it in Amazon. You can easily get it from Amazon. I send letter to Prime Minister. I send a letter to our President, to Xi Jinping. I send a letter to ministers, many ministers. And they accept it. Right? So read it. Accept it. That's why Sponge City become a movement in China, a national movement. Every city want to become a sponge city. And every city want to become an ecological city. So that's why I think that we need this decision maker to understand this and convince us. So if we have 300 people here, if we send 300 letters to your Thai minister, it will work. It will work. Yeah, sponge city. And I really make successful in Russia. So Russia, Tatarstan, the president. I lecture to the president privately. I speak to the president, and he understands it. And we built a demonstrative project. The Kaban Lake. It was built a year ago, and 50,000 people visited every day during the summer. 50,000 people. It becomes such a good demonstration, and get an award from American Society of Planning Society, APA, American Association of Planning. Get 2 awards. The Cavallinci Award and this is Immakhag Award from the American Society, a Russian project done by the Chinese TURENSCAPE. So that's very interesting story. You can see the knowledge can be transmitted across. But the key is the president and minister. Last week I speak to the minister of Indonesia called the Development and Planning Ministry, and he told me he will convince his president, ask me to speak their president. So I think that's possible. That's possible. I'm still waiting for his message. So this way, yeah.
Next question from
Actually, my comment is very similar to you. And first of all, I would like to thank you very much, Kongjian Yu, to come to Bangkok finally, because I have been following you for many times, and I enjoy your lecture for I think more than 3 times already, and all the lecture and have been very powerful. So I would like to have you as probably a mediator to our government, not only the mayor, because I am kind of hopeless for our Bangkok. But you know, we have a very nice river, Bang Pakong River, with now your friend Jack Ma from China. He going to come here and to propose to be like kind of industrial estate in the Chachoengsao province, with part of our EEC, Eastern Economic Corridor, from Bangkok to Samut Prakan, the location of Suvarnabhumi Airport, to Bang Pakong River and to Chonburi. And this will create a very huge development that destroy our river. So could you please be our ambassador to talk with the government? I think you're powerful lecture, and maybe you have a resume to tell to your next speech that you already talked with our Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, sure. I think if you have one demonstration, you know, a big enough size, one demonstration built, you will get snowballing. You get many people visited and they get the knowledge, they get the understanding. I think you have to build one project. Now, this is by the way, it's a new definition for the profession. It's a new profession definition. If you demonstrate your project as a gardener, you always become a gardener, right? We want demonstrations that we are, you know, infrastructure, a new developer, a new infrastructure developer, which is nature-based solution. So we should demonstrate for the profession, for the society of Thailand. This will make your profession powerful, I would say. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Hello, I'm from Shema. Thank you for the inspiring lecture. I think the message that you try to tell us is not about copy your idea to our city, and it's not about inviting you to meet with my Prime Minister and talk to him, because even though in Thai culture we always believe or trust in foreigner friends, not within my own nationality. I think the problem is not about the knowledge, because the knowledge is there.
Yeah.
And the problem is probably the mindset. And I think the lecture that you show us is about how we can shift the mindset into looking into their own asset that each country or each city has.
Yeah.
Because you already mentioned that the farmer know best, not the politician, or even not the profession might not know as much as the farmer in certain issues. So my question is, how can we shift the mindset not only to the government but to the society? Because you already mentioned that at the beginning it's quite difficult, but nowadays Sponsor City is become like a movement. The movement is much, I think, stronger than the policy. It's not like imposed policy, but it's become like the value that not only the Prime Minister but everyone in the society believe that this can be the solution. I think because if we have like 1,000 landscape architects, it won't help if the mindset of the society doesn't change. But how can you? What can we learn from that movement? Of how can make this become the movement and transcend that to the everybody, everyday life of the people, not just the professional and the government.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's why I have other lecture. I have another lecture called as a Big Feet Revolution. It's a revolution. I call it a revolution. the art of survival. I have a couple of different titles of lectures. It's a survival. It's the art of survival. It's a revolution. It's a change of aesthetics. It's a definition of new aesthetics, yeah? New value. So it's a revolution. It's not a technical issue. It's a revolution of green, from gray to green, from industrial civilization to we call it ecological civilization. So it's a whole value change. Landscape is a media. Right? Landscape is a media. So when you build a project, you actually give a message. Right? So the message show people what kind of landscape will be for the future. So if we keep doing those garden ornamental, I call it little feet ornamental garden, it makes no sense for the future. Right? We'll keep people learn by, we have classical beautiful garden, Islamic gardens, Chinese gardens, English garden. They are beautiful, of course, but they didn't create any revolution, change of man. They're creating elite culture, right? Elite culture. It's not art for survival. It's art for enjoyment, for pleasure. But today we are facing the problem of survival, so we need to create another art. This art is about survival, right? That's, I think, you are right. It's not about profession. 1,000 people didn't make a big noise. So that's why I think we should go to media, become a topic of mass media, everyone should be, landscape is certainly a mass media thing, subject. But the problem is that the mass media always misunderstand. They always talk about beautiful garden, beautiful little sculpture, beautiful little, also it's tricky things, trivial things. They never explain the ordinary, what I mentioned is big feet aesthetics. So we need a change of mass media, more for them to understand. It's very good. The Swedish girl, the little girl, becomes a Time magazine cover. Remember, it's about climate change, right? Now that's the mass media. That's the message we should send out. So what's the solution for climate change? Climate change is about two solutions. One is a meditation, immediate cut the greenhouse emission. The other is adaptation. So landscape can do both. Right? We can cut greenhouse gas emission by using less maintenance, less cost, sustainable landscape. But at the same time, we have solution of adaptation, like Sponge City. It's a solution for adaptation. So landscape has the power, has the key to solve the climate change. We have to let them know that. No one will be more powerful than landscape architect, I will say, for the future, when we're facing global climate change. Because we are land designer, The whole globe is about land. Deal with water, deal with flood, deal with drought, deal with pollution. Now that's no other profession will have such a powerful magic behind that. So I will encourage you to become the really transformer, revolutionist. Like you will push for the society, will push for the new civilization. Yeah? Thank you. Good. We have the moderator. We have more questions or whatever.
Any questions? So that's all. And now, may I invite Mr. Thiraphon, the co-founder of Asomsin Institute of the Arts, and Mr. Namchai Sansupha, the president of Thai Association of Landscape Architects, to present our speaker with a gift.
So you, I will give you first. Next, may I invite our distinguished guests to the stage and have a group photo session together, please. Mr. Viwat Salayakampthon, Mr. Mangkon Chaicharearn Maitri, Miss Chanipat Chawananont, Miss Panisa Bunkam, Associate Professor Dr. Dusadi Thayataku, Associate Professor Chuwit Suchaya, Mr. Khwanswan Atipothi, and Miss Chachanin Sang.มองกล้องเลยค่ะSo this is the end of the lecture. Thank you for your participation and attention. Also the interpreter. We hope that today's lecture has given you a motivation to build resilient cities. We also would like to apologize for any inconvenience and please give us a feedback that you can return our questionnaires to our staff at the front door
Thank you very much รบกวนคืนแบบสอบถามให้กับสตาฟเราได้ที่ด้านหน้านะคะขอบคุณมากค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ